Hey everybody, this is John Fenn, Church Without Walls International, CWOWI.org, and our EU website, CWOWI.eu. And we are a house church network. You know that I always say that. I always share the fact that a house church, a biblical house church, is not a miniature of the auditorium. It's not sermon oriented. It's based around food, fellowship, prayer, and sharing what we have in common, teaching, but not teaching in the way that you think. But the Acts 2:42 four elements: teaching, food, fellowship, and prayer. Those elements are always involved. And if not food, I mean, not it doesn't have to be a full meal. Sometimes it's just a snack. People are invited over to somebody's home, and so you share. And anyway, visit our website, learn more about it. There's 10 videos, question and answer, other things like that there, resources. So today, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been doing something around the house, driving down the road, walking along a path, and suddenly an inspiration, a revelation comes to you that you know is the Lord, and you think, wow, that's so amazing, and you're sure that you're going to remember that tomorrow morning or later in the day, and you can write it down. And you get to that point, you're like, okay, now what was what was that revelation that came to me? What was that happened? And you think, okay, why did I forget that? How did I forget that? Well, the reason that happened is it was a revelation of your spirit. Your mind perceived a revelation in your spirit. The revelation floated up, if you will, into your mind. Spirit and soul being combined, being the eternal part of you. People in heaven are spirit and soul, waiting for the redemption of the body. But your spirit and soul being connected. Only the person of the word knows the difference between the thoughts and the intentions of the heart here. But it comes into your spirit, man, and it kind of floats up into your mind, and you think, wow, that's an amazing revelation. I will remember that. And then poof, it's gone. Later in the day, you're thinking, what was it earlier that I was thinking of? Oh yeah, it had something to do with this verse, but I don't recall what it was. The reason that happens is because it doesn't hit your mind. You don't do anything to record it, to bring it to remembrance. You say, well, of course I was thinking on it. It was revelation. Of course it hit my mind. Yes, but it was your spirit and your soul communing together in that revelation, and your mind was picking up on the revelation coming out of your spirit. So what you have to do is find a way to write it down at the moment you get that revelation. And if you don't have that, if you don't have a paper and pen or something like that in your car, or if you can't think to say, to write a memo to yourself, or ask the electronic device to remind you about such and such, or if you can't send yourself an email, a verbal email while you're walking, driving, or whatever the case is, then you need to find a way to bring that to remembrance. What I do very often, if I don't have something to write it down, is I will go back in my mind to where I was at the moment I had that revelation, and put myself back into that spot, and then be thinking, okay, what was going on? Was there a worship song that was going on? Was there something happening? What was I thinking of? And I do that while I pray in the Spirit. That is, those who've received the Holy Spirit, I pray in the Spirit, and in my mind, I put myself back into that place that I was. And then I allow, by praying in the Spirit, then that revelation will flow once again out of my spirit. I hope that makes sense. You've got those two options. When there's revelation from your spirit, you've got those two options. Basically, you write it down at the moment, or you leave yourself a voice memo, or whatever the case is at that moment, because it's not going to register in your mind. You have to do something to register it in your mind, to remember it. And for me, I'm always sending myself text messages and emails, especially. And I'll just say, do a verbal email, or I'll ask the electronic person in my phone to remind me of such and such. You see, if I say its name, it's going to record while I'm here recording this. But I'll say, hey, or whatever the case is, and I'll say, remind me of, and I'll state what the revelation is, and then I'll go on about my business. And then I'll come back to it later. But the point is, it's out of your spirit, man. And a lot of people aren't familiar with the things of your spirit man coming up to your mind and floating into your mind. And it's a hard time to distinguish between is it me or is it God in some of those cases. Hebrews chapter 5 and verse 14 says that strong meat, that is steak, that is meat that needs to be chewed up well, strong meat is for those who by reason of use have exercised or trained their senses to discern between good and evil. Strong meat is for those who by reason of use have trained their senses to discern between good and evil. By reason of use, trained. What I'm telling you is this isn't a one and done. This isn't a formula. This is learning how to walk with the Father, walk with the Lord, receive revelation, and have some trial and error, have some experience built up. Because what's going to happen is as you are familiar with being in his presence, your mind will shift more easily to your spirit man. And when that happens, when you shift to your spirit man, then you become accustomed to sensing his presence in your spirit. You become accustomed to that warmth, that security, that peace that is always there in your spirit. And your mind you can train yourself to just instantly shift attention down into your spirit and sense his presence, his peace there. And so you'll come up against a situation or somebody will be looking you in the eye and telling you something, and your mind can shift your attention down into your spirit and say, how does this register? How does this feel? What does the Spirit of truth say? You hear something like some strange teaching or something. You say that doesn't even make common sense, and you check in your spirit, and there's nothing that bears witness, or maybe there's actually a grievance there. It's this continual lifestyle of shifting your attention between your natural senses that are out there, your sight and your hearing and taste, touch, smell, and your spirit man senses to sense how does that feel? What does that feel like? And you know it comes up then, how do I know when I'm in the Lord's presence? How do I keep my mind still? And how do I know if thoughts that come to me in those times are him rather than me? And let me explain first about the human spirit. We are created by our Heavenly Father to be extremely creative. We are creative. We are can think of solutions and different things. We can have quite naturally a vision for something which could be. I've talked before about people who have on their heart to maybe provide a place of rest for missionaries or ministers who need a place of rest, and so they'll sell some land or sell some property, and they'll buy a farm. They'll buy a piece of land, and they have this great vision of cabins there and walking trails and all kinds of things. And they'll say, the Lord's leading this. Well, actually, many times it's just their spirit. It is they have something in their heart to do for those in ministry. And they see a piece of land and suddenly, boom, they just can see the whole vision. They can see how it'll come to pass. And many times that's of their own heart, their own spirit. Jeremiah 23, verses 16 and 17, all the way through, or you can go through 30, 37. You can go through all those verses there. And the Lord is actually talking to Jeremiah in Jeremiah 23 about false pastors, false prophets. But the principles he lays out are eternal. And he says in verses 16 and 17 that there are those who speak a vision of their own heart or out of their own imagination. And later in about verse 32 or so that he talks about, or 26, about 26 or 32, he talks about people who have an imagination or a vision of their own heart. And so it is possible that you have the creativity that God has put in you, but he hasn't initiated it. It's been your own thoughts, your own creative processes that go on, and you take action and think God is in this, and then something happens a year or two down the road and it doesn't flourish, and you think, okay, what happened? Maybe, was it me or did I hear wrong? Or where are you, Lord? That sort of a thing. Their money becomes exhausted and it's unfinished, and they think, okay, what's going on? So many of us have launched into things where we think this is what the Lord wants, but we come out of it on the other side and we think, oh no, that must have been myself, but I don't know how I got off. Well, that is your own heart, your own spirit, your own vision, your own dreams. that have done that, not because of any fault of your own through deceit or anything else. Your heart is right for God, but you go on with the idea and it's of your own heart. When it's the Lord, there will be several confirmations. Paul wrote to the Corinthians, he said, this is now about the third time I'm coming to you, and in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word is established. And so what I always do is, number one, I make sure that, number one, the wisdom from above, James chapter 3, from verses about 15, 16, 17, the wisdom from above is pure and peaceful and gentle, whereas the wisdom from the earth brings fear and confusion. That's a good measure of websites that you visit as well. The wisdom from above is pure and peaceful, that's full of grace. And so any idea you have, there will be peace from it. And it won't be it'll be a combining of peace. It's not just that there's peace in there. There's a combining of peace. You can sense the Lord is joining with you in that idea that it is peace. Number 2, ask him to confirm it. Ask him to confirm it. Just say, Father, I've got this in my heart to do, but I don't know if it's you or not. I need 1 or 2 outside confirmations from people who don't know anything that's going on, that is unmistakably you. I need you to confirm it. So ask him for 1 or 2 confirmations, because in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word is confirmed. So if you've got a word that you think is the Lord, or a direction you think is the Lord, then ask him for confirmation. Now, how do you keep your mind wandering while you're in prayer is related to this. How is it that when you're in his presence, how is it that an idea comes and you may need to write it down? If it's revelation, you may, while you're in prayer, you keep paper and pen handy so you can write down things, and then you can return to the worship or the prayer. But how do you keep your mind from wandering in that? And, Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verses 14 and 15, he said, when I pray with my spirit, my mind is unfruitful. See, you can pray in tongues and be reading the newspaper because it's an act of your spirit and soul and your body, but your mind, your soul can actually be reading the newspaper or thinking on other things. And that's perfectly fine. I'll often, yesterday I was working outside in the afternoon, and I was just praying in the spirit continually, but I was also had my mind on what I was doing out in the yard for my own safety and for the production of what we're trying to do this spring as we get the yard planted, or working on the garden and yard and all that. And so you can pray in the spirit, and it says your mind is unfruitful. But he says the solution is for your mind and you pray in the spirit, you sing in the spirit, but you pray in your mind, you sing with your mind as well. And when I have those moments when I just want to be in the spirit, when I want to stay focused on the things of the Lord in prayer and worship, then I have disciplined myself to not let my mind wander to thinking, oh no, did I leave the sink running? Or, oh no, do I have this to do tomorrow? Did I text message so-and-so to make sure that we're clear on that? I let all that stuff go by. And it used to take about 45 or 50 minutes. I timed myself one time that it took about 50 minutes for my mind to work through all the different things. And then it got down. I was able to discipline through just, it take about 10 minutes to work through that. And now I can just discipline my mind. And what I do is I discipline myself to listen to what my tongues is saying, so that my spirit and soul are one. I listen to what I'm saying. And that takes a time where my body is set, it's quiet, it's usually late night or early morning, and I'm praying in the spirit, and I'm listening with my mind to what I'm praying in the spirit or what I'm singing in the spirit, and my mind is going along, and out of that flows the wisdom of God and the things to pray about that he wants prayed about. And I flow out of that, and it's really can interpret or at least get the gist of what I am saying, but your mind has to listen to what your spirit is doing. So anyway, I've shared several different tips here, but basically your spirit man can have revelation and your mind doesn't pick up on it, and you need to write it down or make it register in the brain somehow. And then also, if something you feel is the Lord, it's going to have peace with it. It's going to have a purity to it. And you can ask him for a couple confirmations, if it's him. If not, then set it aside and just say, okay, I'm just going to hold on to this. All right. Hope these things have been helpful. John Fenn, CWOWI.org.